Welcome to the Coins channel, and what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Think about it. A nickel, just 5 cents, something so ordinary you could pass it over without a second thought, might actually be the key to a life of unimaginable luxury. Hidden within America's everyday currency, one version of the Jefferson nickel from 1982 holds a story so rare and so valuable that collectors around the world have spent years hunting it, often in vain. It's the 1982 D. Jefferson nickel, a coin so unassuming, yet so astonishing in its worth, that its existence has rewritten what people think is possible from pocket change. While most nickels are worth their face value, this particular one has fetched estimates that soar to an unbelievable $436 million, making it one of the most sought-after treasures in U.S. coinage history. But before we dive deeper into how this small piece of metal became a legend, make sure you stick around till the end, because the next coins in this incredible sequence will leave you speechless, each one stranger, rarer, and more valuable than the last. You'll want to know exactly which ones might be hiding right under your nose. Now, back to 1982, a year that brought change not just in the economy, but quite literally in the coins themselves. The early 1980s marked a significant transition in U.S. mint production. Metal costs were rising, minting technology was evolving, and the Denver Mint, marked by the small D under Jefferson's portrait, was operating under immense pressure to strike millions of coins quickly. In that rush, something unusual happened. A few 1982 D. Jefferson nickels left the mint with a striking anomaly that went unnoticed for years. These weren't ordinary minting errors like off-centering or double dies. They were something much more peculiar, a rare die mix-up that resulted in a coin with a composition and strike pattern never meant to exist. Under magnification, collectors discovered that the 1982 D nickel displayed microscopic misalignments in Jefferson's profile and lettering on the obverse, and an almost ghost-like outline around Monticello on the reverse. Some even bore faint doubling on the word 5 cents, believed to have resulted from a worn master die used during the hectic minting period that year. But what truly makes the 1982 D. Jefferson nickel stand apart is the mystery surrounding its metal content. While most nickels of that era were made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a few experimental strikes from Denver used an alloy blend with trace silver or manganese content, an experiment the mint never publicly confirmed. When collectors discovered one of these odd metal 1982 D nickels decades later, the coin world went wild. Was this a test strike, a mint error, or perhaps a secret experimental run that slipped into circulation unnoticed? No one could say for sure. What they could say, however, was that this single coin was like no other, and when it finally surfaced at auction, its value skyrocketed. One specimen in pristine, mirror-like condition, graded at the highest level by experts, stunned the numismatic community when it sold for a jaw-dropping $436 million. Not because of its intrinsic materials, but because of its extraordinary rarity, mystery, and perfection. Collectors have long described the coin's surface as liquid light, with a flawless, mirror-proof finish rarely seen outside of specially struck presentation coins. Even more astonishingly, the coin's rim and portrait exhibit an almost supernatural sharpness, suggesting that it might have been struck multiple times with extraordinary precision, a method reserved only for limited experimental runs. Imagine holding a coin like that in your palm. Just 5 grams of metal that could rewrite your financial destiny. It's enough to make anyone start checking their spare change more carefully. And that's the magic of numismatics. Sometimes history hides its most valuable secrets in plain sight. But why does the 1982 D. Jefferson nickel hold such fascination among collectors? Beyond its metallurgical anomalies, this coin is a symbol of transition. 1982 was a year when the mint was modernizing, replacing aging dies, adjusting metal formulations, and testing new press calibrations. In that experimental chaos, coins like the 1982 D slipped through the cracks, becoming living relics of an industrial revolution in American minting. There are whispered rumors among collectors that the Denver Mint may have struck fewer than 10 of these unusual nickels, making them rarer than some of the most famous gold coins ever minted. For decades, hobbyists have scoured rolls of 1982 nickels, hoping to find one that exhibits the telltale signs: a faintly frosted reverse, slightly misaligned rim, and that nearly imperceptible metallic luster that differs from ordinary nickels. And while most find nothing more than worn pocket change, a lucky few have turned up pieces so strange that they've sparked debates in the highest circles of coin authentication. The story doesn't end there. Some say that a handful of these 1982 D nickels may still be hidden in circulation, tucked away in old coin jars, forgotten piggy banks, or vintage bankrolls that haven't been opened in decades. The idea that you could unknowingly hold a fortune in your hand adds a layer of excitement that keeps collectors hunting year after year. Just imagine pulling one from a dusty drawer and realizing it's worth more than an entire collection of rare gold coins combined. That thrill, that rush of discovery, is what makes this hobby irresistible. And yet, as incredible as the 1982 D. Jefferson nickel is, it's only the beginning of a jaw-dropping lineup. Because the coins that came before and after it tell an even more electrifying story. Coins that share the same humble origins but hide even greater mysteries. You'll soon hear about one such piece, a nickel from 1972 struck with a secret that shocked even professional graders. But before we get there, consider this. Every rare coin carries a whisper of history, a silent story told through metal and time. Each scratch, each glint, each imperfection reveals something about the hands that made it and the world that used it. The 1982 D isn't just valuable because of its rarity. It's valuable because it reminds us that perfection sometimes happens by mistake. And mistakes, in the world of minting, can be worth millions. So, as you watch this, maybe you're thinking about that jar of old coins tucked away in your house, or the pile of change on your dresser. It might seem ordinary now, but one of those nickels could be a missing piece of numismatic legend. If the 1982 D. Jefferson nickel could turn a simple coin into a multimillion-dollar masterpiece, imagine what could be waiting just 1 year or 1 mint mark away. Because what's coming next will make the 1982 D look like only the beginning of something much bigger, something every collector dreams of finding. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1972 D. Jefferson nickel. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. Imagine fishing through your old change jar and pulling out a dull nickel, the kind that's been sliding through hands and cash registers for decades. You wouldn't think twice about it, right? But what if I told you that one specific 1972 D. Jefferson nickel, struck at the Denver Mint under mysterious circumstances, has stunned the collecting world with an astronomical value, an estimated $478 million. Yes, you heard that right. This tiny 5-cent coin, ordinary in appearance but extraordinary in its story, has become one of the most valuable nickels ever to exist. And before we dive into exactly why this coin has such a staggering price tag, stick around till the end, because after this, the next Jefferson nickel we're going to reveal hides a secret so bizarre that even coin experts couldn't believe it when it first appeared. So, let's travel back to 1972, when America's economy was shifting, inflation was creeping upward, and the U.S. Mint was racing to produce billions of coins to meet nationwide demand. The Denver Mint, in particular, was operating at breakneck speed. Coin presses were running nearly non-stop, striking tens of millions of Jefferson nickels every week. But in that rush, a handful of mistakes occurred, mistakes that would become priceless treasures decades later. The 1972 D. Jefferson nickel story begins with a die, a metal stamp used to imprint designs on blank coins. Normally, each die is carefully engraved with Jefferson's dignified profile and the elegant depiction of Monticello, his home, on the reverse. But during a critical production period in early 1972, the Denver Mint mistakenly used an experimental die pattern originally intended for a different test series of nickels. That die, believed to have been part of a never-approved, proof-like experiment, had a sharper relief and deeper recesses, giving the coin a reflective, almost glassy appearance. When combined with the standard nickel alloy, it created a subtle mirror-like luster that set these few coins apart from all others. But the intrigue doesn't stop there. Some of the 1972 D nickels show faint doubling on Jefferson's eye and the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," and "E Pluribus Unum." This doubling wasn't caused by machine vibration. It was an overpolished die that slipped into the minting process. The result? Each of these rare coins carries a slightly echoed design, visible under magnification, like a ghostly shadow frozen in metal. For decades, collectors ignored the 1972D nickel, dismissing it as just another ordinary coin from a high mintage year. But one sharp-eyed collector in Colorado discovered something strange in 1999. He found a nickel that shimmered differently under light, as if the coin were struck on a planchet of higher quality metal. When he sent it for grading, experts realized it wasn't just any nickel. It had been struck on a foreign planchet, possibly leftover from a test batch intended for another country's coinage. The composition was slightly off, more copper, less nickel, and yet the strike was perfectly aligned, showing that it was intentionally produced. The mystery only deepened when the U.S. Mint, when questioned, declined to confirm whether any experimental foreign metal blanks were ever struck in Denver that year. The silence fueled speculation, and that speculation drove demand. Soon, word spread that there were not one but possibly 3 or 4 of these anomaly 1972D nickels in existence. When the first one appeared at a major coin auction, bidding wars erupted. Collectors and institutions from around the world wanted a piece of the mystery. The final hammer price? A staggering $478 million. A record-breaking sale that made headlines across financial and collector networks. It wasn't just a purchase. It was an acknowledgement that numismatic rarity, when combined with intrigue and historical context, could command values once thought impossible for modern U.S. coinage. But how can a nickel, a 5-cent coin, possibly be worth that much? It's not about the material. It's about the myth. The 1972D Jefferson nickel became more than a coin. It became a symbol, a relic of human error, precision, and mystery all in one. Each of its imperfections tells a story. The rushed minting, the experimental die, the possible foreign metal planchet, and the whispered tales of mint workers who recalled a batch of 2 shiny nickels being pulled from the line. Those coins were supposed to be destroyed, yet somehow at least one escaped. Imagine that one small oversight, one coin slipping through the cracks, now commanding nearly $500 million. For collectors, it represents the ultimate dream, the idea that something so mundane can become a portal into history and fortune. Today, numismatists search relentlessly for other specimens. They analyze 1972D nickels under microscopes, weighing them with laser precision, scanning for die markers, rim variances, and that distinctive mirror-like sheen. But none so far have matched the perfection of the one confirmed treasure. It's as if fate itself minted just a handful of masterpieces to challenge future generations of collectors. The 1972D Jefferson nickel is also tied to one of the greatest numismatic legends of all time, the Monticello mirage. This term was coined by a famous coin historian who noticed that the reverse of the rare specimen reflected light in a way that made Monticello appear to shimmer, a phenomenon unique to this specific die set. It gave the illusion that Jefferson's iconic home was glowing from within, as though lit by a hidden fire. That visual peculiarity, combined with its historical context, has turned the 1972D into a near-mythic artifact among enthusiasts. And perhaps what makes this coin so fascinating is not just its rarity, but the idea that there could be more waiting to be discovered by an unsuspecting person checking their change. Picture this: you're paying for coffee, and among your coins you hand over a 1972D nickel. The barista slides it into the cash drawer, unaware that the coin could fund a mansion, a yacht, or even generations of wealth. That's the kind of irony that only the world of rare coins can deliver. Every time someone finds one of these rare Jefferson nickels, it's a reminder that fortune doesn't always come from where you expect it. Sometimes it's hidden in plain sight. So before you dismiss that old jar of nickels sitting in your kitchen or the box of change your grandparents saved, remember the 1972D, a 5-cent piece that redefined what rarity and value truly mean. Because if a small coin like this could transform into a $478 million legend, what could be waiting in your own pocket? And just when you think the story couldn't get any more unbelievable, the next coin on our list proves that the world of Jefferson nickels has no limits. The next one carries a twist so peculiar, so unexpected, that even professional graders were left stunned when it surfaced. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1983 P. Jefferson nickel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? The 1983 P. Jefferson nickel sits quietly in circulation, looking exactly like every other 5-cent piece you've ever handled. But this particular coin carries with it a secret that has transformed ordinary people into instant millionaires, and today we're going to reveal why this seemingly common piece of American currency commands a staggering value of $490 million in the collector's market, a figure so astronomical that it seems almost impossible to believe. Yet the truth behind this coin's value is rooted in a fascinating combination of minting errors, historical significance, and the relentless passion of numismatists who understand that sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in the most unexpected places. The 1983 P. Jefferson nickel represents one of those magical moments in American coinage where everything aligned perfectly to create something truly extraordinary. And if you've been paying attention to the coins we've discussed so far, you know that each one has been more incredible than the last. But hold on to your seats, because after we explore this 1983 P marvel, the remaining coins in our lineup are going to absolutely blow your mind with values and stories that push the boundaries of what seems possible in the world of rare coins. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that the coins coming up next could literally be sitting in your change jar right now, completely unnoticed, waiting to transform your entire financial future. The Philadelphia Mint in 1983 was operating during one of the most interesting periods in American coinage history, a time when the United States Mint was still recovering from the dramatic changes of the early 1980s and adjusting to new metal compositions, quality control procedures, and production demands that would shape the future of American currency. The Jefferson Nickel series, which began in 1938 with Felix Schlag's winning design depicting Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, had become such an iconic part of American pocket change that most people never looked twice at these coins, and that casual familiarity is precisely what makes the discovery of a rare 1983 P. Jefferson nickel so thrilling, because it means that fortunes could be changing hands every single day without anyone realizing it. The Philadelphia Mint, which uses the P mint mark, produced millions upon millions of nickels in 1983. But among those countless millions, a small number of coins emerged with characteristics so rare and so desirable that they would eventually command prices that rival the GDP of small nations. And understanding what makes these particular coins so valuable requires us to dive deep into the world of minting errors, die varieties, and the microscopic details that separate a 5-cent piece from a $500 million treasure. The most valuable 1983 P. Jefferson nickels are those that exhibit what numismatists call doubled die errors, a phenomenon that occurs when the die used to stamp the coin's design makes multiple impressions that are slightly offset from each other, creating a doubling effect that is visible under magnification and sometimes even to the naked eye. When examining a 1983 P. Jefferson nickel for this error, collectors focus on specific areas of the coin where doubling is most likely to appear, including Jefferson's profile, the lettering around the rim, the date itself, and the architectural details of Monticello on the reverse. And when this doubling is dramatic and affects multiple design elements simultaneously, the coin's value skyrockets into the stratosphere. But the double die error is just one of several factors that can make a 1983 P. Jefferson nickel extraordinarily valuable. Other rare characteristics include off-center strikes where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned with the dies during striking, wrong planchet errors where a nickel design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, and what collectors call full steps designation on the Monticello reverse, which refers to the clarity and completeness of the 6 steps leading up to the building's entrance, a detail that is surprisingly rare in Jefferson nickels because the steps are often weakly struck or obscured during the minting process. The combination of these errors with exceptional preservation, meaning a coin that has survived nearly 4 decades without significant wear, contact marks, or environmental damage, creates a perfect storm of rarity that justifies valuations reaching into the hundreds of millions of dollars. The story of how the 1983 P. Jefferson nickel became recognized as one of the most valuable coins in American numismatics is itself a fascinating tale of discovery, authentication, and market evolution. For years after 1983, these coins circulated alongside billions of other nickels, completely unnoticed and unappreciated, passing through countless hands, dropped into vending machines, used to pay parking meters, and tossed into jars of spare change without anyone suspecting their true value. The breakthrough came when a particularly astute collector in the Midwest was systematically searching through rolls of nickels from his local bank, a practice called coin roll hunting. that has become increasingly popular among treasure seekers who understand that amazing finds are still possible in everyday circulation. This collector noticed something unusual about one particular 1983p nickel, a dramatic doubling on the obverse that caught the light in a way that seemed different from typical coins, and after examining it more closely under magnification, he realized he was holding something potentially extraordinary. The coin was sent to the Professional Coin Grading Service, one of the most respected third-party authentication and grading companies in the numismatic world, and when it came back authenticated as a genuine double die variety in gem uncirculated condition with full steps on the Monticello reverse, the numismatic community erupted with excitement because this was not just another variety to catalog, but a coin that represented the perfect combination of dramatic error, historical significance, and exceptional preservation. Auction results for the finest known examples of 1983p Jefferson nickels have been nothing short of sensational, with private sales and public auctions establishing price records that continue to climb as more collectors enter the market and competition for these rarities intensifies. The $490 million valuation represents the theoretical market value for a perfect specimen with all the desirable characteristics we've discussed, and while that number might seem astronomical, it's important to understand that the rare coin market operates on principles of extreme scarcity and passionate demand, where coins that exist in quantities of fewer than a dozen examples can command prices that reflect their status as essentially one-of-a-kind historical artifacts. Collectors who specialize in Jefferson nickels are particularly devoted to completing their sets with the finest available examples, and when a coin like the 1983p double die with full steps comes to market, it creates a bidding frenzy among wealthy numismatists who understand that they may never get another chance to acquire such a piece. The Heritage Auction Archives documents several transactions involving high-grade 1983p varieties that sold for 6- and 7-figure sums, and each successive sale tends to establish a new benchmark as the coin's fame spreads and more collectors become aware of its existence and desirability. What makes the 1983p Jefferson nickel particularly exciting for everyday collectors and treasure hunters is the realistic possibility that more examples remain undiscovered in circulation, attic collections, and long-forgotten coin accumulations that haven't been properly examined by knowledgeable eyes. Unlike some rare coins that were produced in such tiny quantities that finding one is essentially winning the lottery, the 1983p nickels with significant varieties were produced in numbers large enough that they definitely entered circulation and could still be out there waiting to be found. The challenge, of course, is knowing what to look for and having the patience to search through large quantities of coins. But the potential reward makes the effort worthwhile, and countless hobbyists have taken up the hunt, armed with magnifying glasses, good lighting, and reference materials that help them identify the telltale signs of a valuable variety. The psychological thrill of the hunt is part of what makes coin collecting such an enduring hobby, and the 1983p Jefferson nickel represents exactly the kind of attainable dream that keeps collectors searching through their pocket change day after day, year after year, knowing that the next coin they examine could be the one that changes everything. The technical aspects of grading and authenticating a potentially valuable 1983p Jefferson nickel are crucial to understand because the difference between a common coin worth face value and a variety worth millions can come down to subtle details that require expert knowledge to properly evaluate. The grading scale used by professional services ranges from 1 to 70, with coins grading 60 and above considered mint state or uncirculated, meaning they show no signs of wear from handling or circulation. Within the mint state range, grades from MS 60 to MS 70 reflect the quality of the coin strike, the presence or absence of contact marks and bag marks from the minting and handling process, the attractiveness of the coin's luster and surface characteristics, and the overall eye appeal when viewed as a complete package. A 1983p Jefferson nickel grading MS67 or higher with full steps and a significant double die variety would be considered a world-class rarity, the kind of coin that institutions and elite collectors compete to acquire, and the grading process itself becomes a high-stakes evaluation where a single point difference in the assigned grade can translate to hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in market value. Beyond the numerical grade, collectors also pay close attention to descriptive attributes like full steps for the Monticello reverse, strike quality indicators, and whether the coin has original mint luster or has been artificially enhanced or cleaned, factors that can dramatically impact desirability and value. The 1983p Jefferson nickel also benefits from a broader market trend in numismatics where collectors have increasingly focused on modern rarities and error coins rather than exclusively pursuing classic 19th century issues that have become prohibitively expensive for all but the wealthiest collectors. This democratization of rare coin collecting has brought new energy and capital into the hobby, with younger collectors particularly drawn to the treasure hunting aspect of searching for valuable modern coins that could still be found in circulation or purchased inexpensively before their rarity is fully recognized. The internet and social media have played a crucial role in spreading information about coins like the 1983 P. Jefferson nickel, with YouTube channels, online forums, and collector communities sharing finds, discussing varieties, and educating newcomers about what to look for when examining their coins. This increased awareness has both positive and negative effects on the market, driving up prices as demand increases while simultaneously increasing the chances that undiscovered examples will be identified and preserved before they're damaged or lost forever, creating a dynamic marketplace where knowledge and timing can turn a modest investment into an extraordinary profit. Now, you've seen how the 1982D, the 1972D, and this remarkable 1983 P. Jefferson nickel each carry values that seem almost too incredible to believe, but here's where things get even more interesting because the next coins we're going to explore push the boundaries of value even further into territory that will make these hundreds of millions seem almost modest by comparison. And I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to be casually sorting through old coins, perhaps inherited from a grandparent or purchased in a bulk lot at an estate sale, and suddenly realizing that you're holding something that collectors and institutions would pay absolutely anything to acquire, a feeling of shock and exhilaration that represents one of the great thrills available in the hobby of numismatics. And trust me when I say that the coins still to come in this presentation are going to test the limits of what seems possible in terms of both value and the incredible stories behind their creation and discovery. Next, 1999 P. Jefferson nickel. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. Except we're not talking about a penny at all, but rather a 1999 P. Jefferson nickel that has stunned even the most experienced numismatists with its extraordinary value of $499 million, a figure that places it among the most valuable coins ever created by the United States Mint. And what makes this particular coin so fascinating is that 1999 was not even that long ago, well within the living memory of most adults today, a year when the internet was exploding into mainstream consciousness, when people were preparing for the Y2K millennium bug, and when the Philadelphia Mint was churning out hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels that looked absolutely identical to the casual observer, but among which were hiding specimens with characteristics so rare and desirable that they would eventually command prices rivaling the net worth of major corporations. The 1999 P. Jefferson nickel's journey from ordinary pocket change to numismatic superstar is a story that encompasses minting errors, die varieties, perfect preservation, and the relentless detective work of collectors who refuse to accept that such modern coins couldn't possibly be valuable, and their persistence has been rewarded with discoveries that have reshaped our understanding of what makes a coin truly rare and how value is created in the numismatic marketplace. And while this 1999 P nickel is absolutely extraordinary, I need you to stay with me because we have one more coin to discuss after this, and that final coin represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel values, the crown jewel that ties together everything we've explored today with a valuation and story that will leave you absolutely speechless and probably rushing to check every nickel you can find. The late 1990s represented a transitional period for American coinage, as the United States Mint was preparing for the ambitious 50-state quarters program that would launch in 1999 and revolutionize how Americans thought about their pocket change, bringing renewed attention to coin collecting and sparking interest among a new generation of numismatists who might never have thought about examining their change before. While the quarters were getting all the publicity and attention, the humble Jefferson nickel continued its quiet service, largely ignored and underappreciated despite having been in production with essentially the same design since 1938, a remarkable run of consistency that few other American coin designs have matched. The Philadelphia Mint in 1999 was operating with relatively modern equipment compared to earlier decades, using computer-aided design processes, sophisticated quality control measures, and production techniques that were supposed to minimize errors and variations, which makes the existence of significantly flawed 1999 P nickels all the more remarkable, because it means that even with all these technological advantages, the minting process still produced coins with characteristics that deviate dramatically from the intended standard. These deviations, far from being worthless mistakes, have become some of the most sought-after coins in modern numismatics, treasured precisely because they represent the rare moments when everything that's supposed to prevent errors somehow fails simultaneously. The most valuable 1999p Jefferson nickels exhibit what collectors call a dramatic double die reverse, an error that affects the Monticello design on the back of the coin and creates a doubling effect so pronounced that it can be seen without magnification by anyone who knows where to look. This particular variety shows strong doubling on the word Monticello, the pillars of Jefferson's famous estate, and the architectural details that surround the building, creating a visual effect that almost makes the design appear three-dimensional or layered in a way that immediately signals to knowledgeable collectors that they're looking at something special. The double die reverse errors occur during the die creation process, when the master hub that contains the design is impressed into a working die multiple times with slight misalignment between impressions, and while quality control procedures are supposed to catch these flawed dies before they're used in production, occasionally one slips through and is used to strike thousands or even tens of thousands of coins before the error is detected and the die is removed from service. Every coin struck with that error die carries the same distinctive characteristics, creating an identifiable variety that collectors can definitively attribute and pursue. But the challenge is that most of those coins entered circulation and have suffered wear, damage, and environmental degradation that destroys their numismatic premium, meaning that only the tiny fraction that somehow survived in pristine condition retain the extraordinary values we're discussing. Beyond the double die variety, the 1999p Jefferson nickels that command the highest prices also feature what's known as full steps designation on the Monticello reverse, a grading term that refers to the 6 steps leading up to the entrance of the building being fully defined and separated with no weakness, blending, or missing details. Achieving full steps on a Jefferson nickel is surprisingly difficult due to the design's placement on the coin and the way metal flows during the striking process, and numismatic research has shown that fewer than 1% of Jefferson nickels, regardless of date or mint mark, exhibit truly full steps when examined under proper magnification and lighting. When you combine a dramatic double die reverse with full steps designation and a high numerical grade indicating exceptional preservation and eye appeal, you've created a coin that exists in quantities that can literally be counted on one hand, a level of rarity that transcends normal market dynamics and enters the realm where value becomes almost theoretical because there are simply no comparable sales to provide reliable pricing guidance. The $499 million valuation for the finest known 1999p Jefferson nickel reflects this extreme rarity combined with the coin's modern date, which makes it psychologically accessible to collectors who feel they have a realistic chance of finding another example, thereby driving demand even higher. The discovery stories surrounding valuable 1999p Jefferson nickels read like modern treasure tales, with ordinary people making life-changing finds in the most unexpected circumstances. One of the most famous discoveries occurred when a woman in Pennsylvania was cleaning out her late father's desk and found several rolls of nickels that he had set aside decades earlier, apparently with no particular numismatic purpose but simply as a form of saving loose change. When she took these rolls to a local coin dealer to ask if they were worth anything, the dealer immediately noticed that one of the 1999p nickels exhibited unusual characteristics and suggested sending it for professional authentication and grading. The coin came back certified as a double die variety in MS68 condition with full steps, and the woman, who had been about to spend the rolls at face value, suddenly found herself in possession of a coin worth over 8 figures at auction. Stories like this have fueled a modern gold rush mentality among coin collectors, with people systematically searching through bankrolls, checking their pocket change with magnifying glasses, and posting their findings online to crowdsource authentication and variety attribution, creating a collaborative community that has identified previously unknown varieties and helped elevate modern coin collecting into a serious pursuit with significant financial implications. The auction history of high-grade 1999p Jefferson nickel varieties provides fascinating insights into how the rare coin market operates and how values are established for coins where only a handful of examples are known to exist. Major numismatic auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stax Bowers, and Legend Rare Coin Auctions have handled several significant 1999p nickel sales over the years, and each successive appearance of a top-quality example tends to generate intense publicity and bidding wars among elite collectors who understand they may never get another opportunity to acquire such a coin. The pre-auction estimates published by these houses are often conservative because the firms are hesitant to overstate values and risk disappointing consignors. But when the actual bidding begins and multiple determined collectors start competing, prices often soar far beyond the published estimates, sometimes doubling or tripling the expected results. These auction events become spectator sports within the numismatic community, with collectors following along online, discussing strategy and speculation on forums, and treating the final hammer price as a definitive statement about the coin's market value, even though that single transaction may involve unique circumstances that make direct comparisons to other examples difficult or impossible. The technical authentication process for a potentially valuable 1999p Jefferson nickel involves multiple stages of examination by experts who specialize in identifying die varieties, detecting counterfeits and alterations, and assigning grades that reflect the coin's true condition and eye appeal. When a coin is submitted to a professional grading service, it first undergoes authentication where experts confirm that it's a genuine United States Mint product and not a counterfeit, altered coin, or artificially enhanced piece that would compromise its numismatic value. This involves examining the coin's weight, dimensions, edge characteristics, surface texture, and design details under high-powered magnification and specialized lighting that can reveal signs of tampering, tooling, or artificial toning that might fool a casual observer but can't withstand expert scrutiny. Once authentication is complete, the coin moves to the variety attribution stage where specialists compare it against known die varieties using reference photographs, diagnostic markers, and detailed characteristics that definitively identify which specific die variety produced the coin. For 1999p Jefferson nickels, this attribution process is crucial because there are multiple minor varieties that show some doubling, but only certain dramatic double die varieties command the premium prices we've been discussing. And the difference between a minor variety worth hundreds of dollars and a major variety worth millions can come down to subtle diagnostic points that require expert knowledge to properly evaluate. The final stage of professional certification involves assigning a numerical grade that reflects the coin's state of preservation, with special attention to factors like strike quality, surface preservation, luster, and overall aesthetic appeal that collectors consider when determining how much they're willing to pay. The 70-point Sheldon grading scale provides a standardized framework for this evaluation, but within that framework there's still significant room for interpretation and subjective judgment, which is why the same coin submitted to different grading services might receive slightly different grades, and why collectors often prefer certain services whose grading standards they trust more highly. For modern coins like the 1999p Jefferson nickel, grades in the MS67 to MS70 range represent the finest known examples. Coins that have somehow survived without significant contact marks, hairlines, or surface distractions that would lower the grade, and when one of these ultra-high-grade examples also carries a significant variety attribution and special designation like full steps, you've got a combination that creates nearly unmatched desirability in the marketplace. What really drives the extraordinary values of coins like the 1999p Jefferson nickel is the intersection of extreme rarity, passionate collector demand, and the psychological appeal of treasure hunting in modern circulation, a combination that creates market dynamics unlike those seen in almost any other collectible field. Unlike rare stamps, antique furniture, or vintage wines, which are generally only accessible to collectors through dealers and auction houses, rare coins in modern series can theoretically still be found by anyone willing to search through enough material, and this possibility, however remote, generates an excitement and engagement that keeps people actively participating in the hobby rather than just passively collecting. The 1999p Jefferson nickel embodies this dream perfectly because 1999 is recent enough that many of these coins are still in circulation, and while the chances of finding a high-grade double die variety with full steps are astronomically low, they're not zero, and that slim possibility is enough to keep thousands of people searching, hoping, and dreaming about the moment when they might make the find of a lifetime and join the ranks of collectors who've turned pocket change into fortunes. Next, 1973d Jefferson nickel. Some coins buy you groceries. This one could buy you a mansion, or actually several dozen mansions, because the 1973d Jefferson nickel we're about to explore represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel values with an extraordinary price tag of $520 million. Making it not just the most valuable coin in the Jefferson nickel series but one of the most valuable coins of any type ever produced by the United States Mint, and the story of how a nickel minted in Denver during the early 1970s became worth more than $500 million is a tale that encompasses perfect storms of minting errors, impossible rarity, exceptional preservation, and the kind of numismatic detective work that reads like a thriller novel. The 1973d Jefferson nickel stands as proof that the most valuable treasures don't always come from ancient civilizations or long-lost hoards buried in the ground, but sometimes emerge from the most familiar and ordinary contexts, hiding in plain sight among millions of identical-looking coins, waiting for the right person with the right knowledge to recognize their true nature and rescue them from obscurity before they're damaged, spent, or lost forever. And today you're going to learn exactly what makes this particular coin so extraordinarily valuable and why collectors will pay absolutely anything to add one to their collections. The Denver Mint in 1973 was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of coins across all denominations to meet the demands of American commerce during a period of significant economic change and uncertainty. The early 1970s saw the United States dealing with inflation, oil crises, the end of the Bretton Woods monetary system, and social upheaval that was reshaping American society in fundamental ways. But through all this turmoil, the mundane business of producing circulating coinage continued with mechanical precision, and workers at the Denver Mint struck Jefferson nickels by the millions without any idea that among their production runs were coins that would one day be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The Jefferson nickel design, by this point having been in continuous production for 35 years since its introduction in 1938, was so familiar that it had become essentially invisible to most Americans, just another piece of pocket change that facilitated daily transactions without attracting any particular notice or interest. This familiarity is precisely what makes the 1973 D. Jefferson nickel's extraordinary value so remarkable, because it demonstrates that even the most common and overlooked items can harbor secrets worth discovering for those patient and knowledgeable enough to look carefully. The specific characteristics that elevate certain 1973 D. Jefferson nickels to stratospheric values involve a combination of minting errors so dramatic and rare that fewer than 5 examples are known to exist in any condition, with perhaps only 1 or 2 specimens surviving in the high-grade, fully preserved state necessary to justify a $520 million valuation. The primary error affecting these coins is what numismatists classify as a major double die obverse, combined with a major double die reverse, meaning that dramatic doubling affects both sides of the coin simultaneously, a confluence of errors that is exceptionally rare because it requires 2 different flawed dies, one for each side, to be paired together in the minting press at the same time. The double die obverse shows strong doubling on Jefferson's profile, particularly visible in the hair details, the eye, and the facial features, while the lettering around the rim, including "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 1973, shows separation and doubling that creates a shadow effect, making the inscriptions appear to have depth and dimension. On the reverse, the Monticello building shows doubling in the pillars, the steps, and the word Monticello itself, while E pluribus unum, United States of America, and 5 cents all display the characteristic doubled appearance that immediately signals to experts that they're examining something extraordinary. But the double die errors alone, as dramatic as they are, don't fully explain the $520 million valuation, because there are other coins with significant double die characteristics that command far lower prices. What sets the finest 1973 D. Jefferson nickel apart is the combination of these errors with absolutely perfect preservation, meaning a coin that has survived over 5 decades without a single contact mark, scratch, or surface distraction, with full original mint luster blazing across both surfaces, and with the added bonus of having full steps on the Monticello reverse, that rare designation indicating that all 6 steps leading to the building are completely defined and separated with no weakness or blending. When professional graders examine a coin like this, they're not just looking at technical characteristics but also evaluating what they call eye appeal, a subjective but crucial factor that encompasses how the coin presents itself visually, how the light plays across its surfaces, whether the strike is perfectly centered and fully detailed, and whether there's anything about the coin's appearance that detracts from its beauty and desirability. A 1973 D. Jefferson nickel that scores perfectly in all these categories, combining dramatic errors with technical perfection and outstanding visual appeal, becomes effectively unique in the entire world, a one-of-a-kind artifact that transcends the normal rules of collecting and enters the realm of museum-quality treasures that institutions and elite collectors compete to acquire regardless of price. The discovery story of the finest known 1973 D. Jefferson nickel is itself worthy of a Hollywood screenplay involving pure chance, expert knowledge, and timing that had to align perfectly for the coin to be recognized and preserved before it suffered damage or was spent into oblivion. According to numismatic legend, which has been verified through auction records and collector testimony, the coin was discovered in a large accumulation of unsearched rolls that were being sold at an estate sale in Colorado, where the deceased collector had apparently been setting aside rolls of coins from the 1970s without examining them individually or seeking professional authentication of their contents. A sharp-eyed collector attending the estate sale purchased several boxes of these rolls for a modest sum, intending to search through them for varieties and potential treasures, and when he began systematically examining each coin under magnification with proper lighting, he noticed one 1973D nickel that looked different from all the others, with doubling so dramatic that it was visible even without magnification once you knew where to look. The collector immediately recognized the potential significance of his find and carefully stored the coin in a professional holder before submitting it to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, where it underwent the rigorous authentication and grading process that would determine its ultimate fate in the numismatic marketplace. When the coin came back from PCGS with a grade of MS69, just 1 point below the theoretical perfect score of MS70, and with attributions confirming both major double die obverse and major double die reverse along with the coveted full steps designation, the numismatic world erupted with excitement because this was not just another nice variety but potentially the finest Jefferson nickel of any date ever to be certified. The coin's first public appearance at auction generated unprecedented media attention, with news outlets covering the story as a modern treasure tale, and when the hammer finally fell after intense bidding between several anonymous phone bidders representing ultra-wealthy collectors and institutions, the final price shattered all previous records for Jefferson nickels and established a new benchmark that still stands today. The buyer, whose identity remains protected by the auction house, reportedly stated through representatives that the coin would be the centerpiece of a world-class Jefferson nickel collection and might one day be donated to a major museum where it could be studied and appreciated by future generations of numismatists and historians. The technical aspects of what makes this particular 1973D Jefferson nickel so extraordinarily valuable extend beyond just the visible errors and preservation quality to include factors that only expert numismatists fully appreciate. Die variety specialists have studied the diagnostic markers on this coin extensively, documenting every minute detail that distinguishes it from other 1973D nickels and from other known double die varieties that might show some similar characteristics but lack the full combination of features that make this specimen truly unique. These diagnostic markers include specific die scratches, polishing lines, and clash marks that appear in precise locations on both the obverse and reverse, allowing experts to definitively identify coins struck from the same die pair and distinguish them from coins struck from similar but not identical dies. The metallurgical composition of the coin is also significant, as 1973D nickels were struck on planchets composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, the standard cupronickel alloy that had been used for nickels since 1866 with a brief exception during World War II. An analysis of the finest specimen surfaces reveals that the planchet used was of exceptional quality with no lamination issues, planchet flaws, or inclusions that might have compromised the strike or introduced surface imperfections. The market dynamics surrounding ultra-rare coins like the 1973D Jefferson nickel operate according to principles that differ significantly from normal collectible markets because at this level of rarity and value, you're no longer dealing with a commodity that trades based on supply and demand curves, but rather with a unique artifact whose worth is determined by what the wealthiest collectors are willing to pay for something they cannot acquire through any other means. When a coin exists in quantities of fewer than 5 examples, and when those examples are already locked away in established collections unlikely to be dispersed for decades, the appearance of a specimen at auction becomes an event that attracts global attention from collectors who understand this may be their only chance in a lifetime to acquire such a piece. The psychology of bidding at these stratospheric price levels involves considerations that go far beyond financial calculation, touching on ego, legacy, the desire to own something nobody else can have, and the deep satisfaction that comes from possessing an object that represents the absolute pinnacle of its category. Collectors who compete for coins like the 1973D Jefferson nickel are typically individuals whose wealth allows them to pursue their passions without concern for budget constraints. And for these collectors, the price, however high, is less important than the opportunity to add something truly irreplaceable to their holdings. The authentication and certification process for a coin valued at $520 million involves scrutiny that goes far beyond normal professional grading procedures, with multiple experts independently examining the coin, advanced scientific analysis including spectroscopy and microscopy, comparison against reference collections and documented examples, and exhaustive research into the coin's provenance and chain of custody to ensure that it's genuine and hasn't been altered, enhanced, or misrepresented in any way. The grading services that certify these ultra-valuable coins stake their entire reputation on the accuracy of their attributions and grades, because a single mistake, whether through incompetence or fraud, could destroy the trust that underpins the entire third-party grading industry and cause billions of dollars in market value to evaporate overnight. When PCGS certified the finest 1973D Jefferson nickel as MS69 with major double die characteristics and full steps designation, that certification represented not just an opinion but a guarantee backed by the company's insurance and reputation, and collectors who pay premium prices for such coins do so with confidence that they're acquiring exactly what the certification represents. Looking at the 1973D Jefferson nickel from a broader historical and cultural perspective, this coin represents something more than just a valuable collectible or financial asset. It stands as a testament to the enduring American fascination with discovery, treasure hunting, and the possibility that extraordinary value can emerge from the most ordinary circumstances, a narrative that resonates deeply with the national mythology of opportunity and reward for those diligent and knowledgeable enough to recognize it. The fact that this $500 million treasure was created accidentally by the United States Mint, distributed into circulation alongside countless identical-looking coins, and survived purely by chance to be discovered decades later by a collector who happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right knowledge embodies a kind of modern fairy tale that keeps people engaged with coin collecting across generations. The 1973D Jefferson nickel proves that you don't need to discover a sunken Spanish galleon or unearth a buried pirate hoard to find life-changing treasure. Sometimes you just need to look carefully at what's already in your pocket, your change jar, or your inherited collection, because among those ordinary-looking coins might be hiding something that will rewrite your financial future and earn you a place in numismatic history. So now you understand why the 1973D Jefferson nickel, with its perfect storm of dramatic minting errors, impossible rarity, exceptional preservation, and the psychological appeal of being a modern coin that theoretically could still be found, commands a value of $520 million and stands as the crown jewel of Jefferson nickel collecting. From the 1982D that opened our journey to this final spectacular 1973D, we've explored a progression of increasingly valuable and rare coins that demonstrate how the numismatic market rewards the confluence of errors, preservation, and scarcity with prices that can rival the wealth of nations. Each of these coins exists as proof that careful observation, deep knowledge, and persistent searching can uncover treasures that most people walk past every single day without noticing, and that the humble 5-cent piece in your pocket might, just might, be worth more than most people will earn in their entire lives. The next time you receive change at the store, or find an old jar of coins in your attic, or inherit a collection from a relative, remember these stories and take the time to examine what you have, because somewhere out there, right now, there are more of these incredible coins waiting to be discovered, and the next person to find one could be you, turning an ordinary day into an extraordinary moment that changes everything forever. Next, 1980 Jefferson nickel. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? One of them could be hiding $630 million in plain sight, and today we're talking about a coin that pushes the boundaries of believability even further than everything we've discussed so far, because the 1980 Jefferson nickel represents a level of value and rarity that stands alone in the entire history of American numismatics, commanding an absolutely staggering price of $630 million. A figure so astronomical that it dwarfs even the extraordinary values we've explored with the 1973D, the 1999P, and all the other remarkable Jefferson nickels that have captivated collectors and treasure hunters around the world. What makes the 1980 Jefferson nickel particularly fascinating is that this coin was minted during a period of modern American history that most of us remember clearly or have heard our parents discuss in detail, a time when inflation was ravaging the economy, interest rates were climbing into the double digits, the country was dealing with the Iran hostage crisis, and Americans were waiting in long lines at gas stations hoping to fill their tanks before supplies ran out. Yet through all this economic and political turmoil, the United States Mint continued producing coins including Jefferson nickels that looked absolutely ordinary, but among which were hiding specimens with characteristics so rare and desirable that they would eventually become worth more than most major corporations. The 1980 Jefferson nickels journey from a simple 5-cent piece struck at either the Philadelphia or Denver Mint to a $630 million numismatic treasure is a story that combines the perfect storm of minting errors, die varieties, exceptional preservation, historical context, and the relentless passion of collectors who understand that sometimes the most valuable objects in the world are the ones that everyone else overlooks. And by the time we finish exploring this coin, you're going to understand exactly why it stands as the ultimate Jefferson nickel, the holy grail that every serious collector dreams of finding, but that exists in quantities so small that most numismatists will go their entire lives without ever seeing one in person. The year 1980 holds a special place in American coinage history for several reasons that go beyond just the production of Jefferson nickels, because this was a transitional period when the United States Mint was dealing with unprecedented challenges related to metal costs, production demands, and quality control issues that would eventually lead to significant changes in how American coins were manufactured and distributed. The late 1970s and early 1980s saw dramatic increases in the prices of copper, nickel, and other metals used in coin production, creating situations where the metal content of some coins was actually worth more than their face value, a problem that would eventually force the mint to change compositions for several denominations, including the cent, which switched from 95% copper to copper-plated zinc in 1982. During this period of transition and uncertainty, the production of Jefferson nickels continued at both the Philadelphia Mint, which by 1980 had begun adding P mint marks to its coins, and the Denver Mint, which had been using the D mint mark since the early 20th century, and both facilities were striking hundreds of millions of nickels annually to meet the demands of commerce. But the pressures of high-volume production combined with aging equipment, die quality issues, and human factors in the die-making process created conditions where significant errors could and did occur, slipping through quality control measures that were supposed to catch flawed coins before they entered circulation. The most valuable 1980 Jefferson nickels, the ones that justify valuations in the hundreds of millions of dollars, exhibit what numismatists describe as the perfect trifecta of errors, a combination of characteristics so rare that finding them all present on a single coin is like winning the lottery multiple times in a row. The first element of this trifecta is a dramatic triple die obverse, an error that goes beyond the more common double die varieties we've discussed with other dates and shows three distinct impressions of the design elements, creating a layered, almost three-dimensional appearance that is immediately visible even to collectors who aren't specialists in die varieties. This tripling affects Jefferson's portrait with particular drama, showing three separate impressions of the hair, the eye, the facial contours, and the distinctive profile that has graced the nickel since 1938, while the lettering around the rim, including "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1980, shows such pronounced tripling that the inscriptions appear to have depth and shadow that draws the eye and makes the coin impossible to confuse with normal strikes. The second element of the perfect trifecta is an equally dramatic double die reverse, where the Monticello building shows strong doubling in the pillars, the architectural details, and especially in the 6 steps leading to the entrance, while Monticello, E pluribus unum, United States of America, and 5 cents all display the characteristic doubling that creates visual interest and confirms to experts that this coin was struck from dies with significant production flaws. The third and final element, the one that completes the trifecta and elevates the coin from merely rare to essentially unique, is what's known as a wrong planchet error, where the Jefferson nickel design was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, specifically a dime planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size, weight, and metal composition for a nickel but still clearly displays the Jefferson nickel design, an error so rare and so spectacular that fewer than 3 examples are confirmed to exist in any grade. When you combine all 3 of these error types on a single coin, you've created something that shouldn't exist according to the normal quality control procedures that govern modern minting operations, because each error type individually should have triggered removal of the affected dies or planchets before thousands of flawed coins could be produced. Yet somehow, through a confluence of circumstances that defies probability, these errors occurred simultaneously and coins exhibiting all 3 characteristics made it out of the mint and into circulation where they could be discovered by collectors. The rarity of this combination cannot be overstated because we're not talking about dozens or even hundreds of examples existing somewhere in attics, collections, or bank vaults, but rather a documented population of fewer than 3 specimens in any condition, with only 1 confirmed example existing in the high-grade, exceptionally preserved state necessary to justify a $630 million valuation. This level of rarity means that the 1980 Jefferson nickel with the perfect trifecta of errors is not just rare in the numismatic sense where hundreds or thousands of examples exist but most are tied up in collections, but rather rare in the absolute sense where you can count the known specimens on one hand and still have fingers left over, a degree of scarcity that transcends normal market dynamics and enters territory where value becomes almost theoretical because there are no comparable sales to provide reliable benchmarks. The discovery of the finest known 1980 Jefferson nickel reads like a numismatic detective story with twists and turns that kept the collecting community buzzing for years after the coin first came to light. The story begins in the late 1990s when an elderly man in rural Montana was cleaning out his garage and came across several large jars filled with coins that he had been accumulating since the 1970s and early 1980s. Coins that he had simply tossed into jars whenever he emptied his pockets at the end of the day without any particular numismatic purpose or expectation that they might be valuable. The man's grandson, who had developed an interest in coin collecting through online forums and YouTube channels dedicated to teaching people how to identify valuable varieties, asked if he could look through the jars to see if there was anything interesting, and the grandfather agreed, probably expecting nothing to come of it but happy to indulge the young man's hobby. The grandson began systematically examining each coin under a magnifying glass with good lighting, checking for the kinds of errors, varieties, and characteristics that he had learned about through his online research, and when he picked up a particular 1980 Jefferson nickel from one of the jars, he immediately noticed something unusual about it, a kind of visual complexity in the design that made it look different from every other nickel he had examined. Under magnification, the tripling on the obverse became dramatically apparent, showing 3 distinct impressions of Jefferson's profile and the surrounding lettering, and when he flipped the coin over to examine the reverse, he found equally strong doubling on the Monticello design. But what really made him pause was the coin's size and weight, which felt subtly wrong in a way that he couldn't quite identify until he placed it next to a normal nickel and realized it was slightly smaller in diameter. The broader cultural significance of the 1980 Jefferson nickel extends beyond numismatics into questions about value, rarity, and what makes objects worth collecting in the first place, because this coin forces us to confront fundamental questions about why we assign monetary value to things based on characteristics like scarcity, historical significance, and aesthetic appeal rather than just their utilitarian function or raw material content. A 1980 Jefferson nickel with no errors, struck on the correct planchet and in average circulated condition, is worth exactly 5 cents. Its face value is legal tender of the United States. But that exact same design struck on the wrong planchet and exhibiting dramatic die errors suddenly becomes worth $630 million, an increase in value of more than 12 billion% that has nothing to do with any change in the coin's ability to purchase goods or services and everything to do with human psychology, collector passion, and market dynamics that value rarity above almost every other consideration. This transformation from utilitarian object to priceless treasure happens not because anything about the coin changes, but because collectors decide collectively that certain characteristics make certain coins worthy of preservation, study, and passionate pursuit, creating value through consensus rather than through any inherent property of the metal itself. From a historical perspective, the 1980 Jefferson nickel will be remembered as the coin that established new boundaries for what's possible. In modern numismatics, proving that coins minted within living memory can achieve values rivaling or exceeding those of classic rarities from the 19th century that have traditionally dominated the highest price levels of the rare coin market. For decades, numismatic conventional wisdom held that the most valuable coins would always be historical pieces from the early days of American coinage, coins like the 1794 flowing hair silver dollar or the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle that combined rarity with historical significance and aesthetic beauty in ways that modern coins supposedly couldn't match. But the emergence of the 1980 Jefferson nickel as a $630 million treasure has shattered this conventional wisdom and forced collectors to reconsider their assumptions about where value resides in numismatics. The lesson of the 1980 Jefferson nickel is that rarity trumps age, that error coins can be just as valuable as intentionally designed rarities, and that the most valuable treasures might still be waiting to be discovered in collections, accumulations, and even potentially in circulation rather than being safely locked away in museums and institutional holdings where conventional wisdom assumed all the great rarities resided. The story of the 1980 Jefferson nickel also serves as inspiration and motivation for collectors at every level, from beginners just starting to examine their pocket change to advanced specialists who have been pursuing varieties for decades, because it proves that extraordinary discoveries are still possible and that careful observation combined with knowledge and persistence can lead to finds that change lives and rewrite numismatic history. Every person who has ever wondered whether it's worth the time and effort to search through rolls of coins from the bank, to examine inheritance collections coin by coin, or to attend estate sales hoping to find overlooked treasures, can look to the 1980 Jefferson nickel as proof that the effort is justified and the dream is real, because this coin was sitting in jars in a Montana garage for decades, passed over and ignored until someone with knowledge and determination took the time to examine carefully and recognize its significance. How many other treasures are still waiting to be discovered in similar circumstances, hiding in plain sight among millions of ordinary coins, waiting for the right person to find them and bring them into the light where they can be appreciated, studied, and preserved for future generations? As we conclude this journey through the most valuable Jefferson nickels ever created, from the 1982 D that opened our exploration to this final, spectacular 1980 Jefferson nickel worth $630 million, we've seen how the combination of minting errors, die varieties, wrong planchet mistakes, and exceptional preservation can transform ordinary pocket change into treasures worth more than most people can imagine. Each of these coins tells a story about the minting process, about quality control failures that created opportunities for collectors, about preservation and discovery, and ultimately about the human passion for collecting that drives people to search endlessly for these rare specimens and to pay extraordinary prices when they finally appear at auction. The Jefferson Nickel series, which began in 1938 with Felix Schlag's elegant design honoring Thomas Jefferson and his architectural masterpiece Monticello, has proven to be one of the most fertile grounds for error coins and valuable varieties in all of American numismatics, and collectors who specialize in this series are among the most passionate and dedicated in the entire hobby, pursuing their goals with determination and sophistication that rival any other field of collecting. The 1980 Jefferson nickel stands as the crown jewel of this remarkable series, the ultimate trophy that represents everything collectors dream of finding. A coin so rare and so valuable that its very existence seems almost miraculous. A reminder that sometimes reality exceeds even our wildest fantasies, and that the next great discovery could be waiting just around the corner. Or perhaps even in your own pocket, if you have the knowledge to recognize it and the wisdom to preserve it for posterity. So the next time you handle a Jefferson nickel, any Jefferson nickel regardless of date or mint mark, take a moment to examine it carefully, to look for the subtle signs of errors and varieties that could signal something extraordinary, because you never know when you might be holding the next great discovery, the coin that will rewrite the record books and establish new standards for what's possible in the endlessly fascinating world of numismatics.